5B, should you believe a statistical study? All right, in 5A, what we looked at was populations and how you choose a sample, and a bunch of other little details in order to get ready for actually doing the study. In 5C, the next section that we'll be looking at, we're going to begin the process of analyzing data. That would be making graphs and charts and interpreting the different numbers that we get from our data. Before we do that, though, what we want to do is a quick check. Just a quick check to see if anything about how the study was carried out was problematic. All right, the 8 guidelines to evaluating a study. For the most part, you can kind of treat these as like a checklist that you would go through, except that it doesn't have to be a complete checklist every time you look at a study. Some of these things might not apply to whatever it is that is happening, but you can think of it almost as a flow of things that you could go through and check off. As I go through these, I'll talk about a couple of them, but some of them I'm not going to go into detail and give examples because the problems that we have in the packet could probably do a better job than what I might say at the beginning. All right, number 1, the big picture view of the study. What that is to take a step back and just look at the study and think about how it was conducted. Okay, was it an observational study or was it an experiment? Because if you got something that should have treatment groups and control groups, but you notice that they've done this in some fashion that might be observational and not experiment, then we know from the very beginning that there's something wrong here. Number 2, consider the source. Suppose that we're doing a study on some sort of new health benefit and there's a product that's involved. If the researchers are hired by a company who could benefit from good results for the product that we have, then that would be problematic. Okay, obviously, well, not obviously, but like if the researchers aren't impartial, then they're going to try and make the results look good for like whoever hired them, kind of thing there. All right, number 3, look for bias in the sample. There's a couple different ways that we can get bias, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. There's called selection bias, and there's also participation bias. But if the sample that you're using already has a strong favor towards one opinion or the other, then that would be a problem. You want to make sure that as you choose your sample that you're not just choosing people that are all favoring one sort of outcome with it. Okay, you want to make sure that you get a good variety of people that are involved here. Number 4, look for problems defining the measuring variables of interest. That one's a little bit of a tough one to give examples of right now, so we'll let that happen as we go through the practice. 5, number 4, what you're really looking for in that one, I can at least say, is if anything is like too vague in how they give the results, then that would be a problem with identifying the measures of the variables. 5, be aware of confounding variables. This one's a real important one here. Confounding variables are some other reason that's affecting the things that you're looking at in the study. Okay, now that doesn't give you like a real great description of stuff here, but what we might be looking at are 2 different things. Let's just call them A and B. We're looking at an A and a B, and we might be looking at, as A increases, what does B do? Does B increase with it, or does B decrease with it? Does it work sort of backwards? And we might be looking to tell some sort of a story that as A goes up, then B goes up. But they might be 2 things that are totally unrelated, and there's some other thing out there, some other factor that's causing both of them to go up, and it's not one causing the other. Okay, I know that we have a good example of that one coming up real shortly, so that one should get clarified in a moment. All right, 6, consider the setting and the wording of the surveys. Yeah, the way that you write questions when you're asking people, if you write them in a certain way, it's almost like a lawyer. If you ask a question in a certain way, then people are going to be inclined to answer in a maybe politically correct way, or they can just be influenced to give a response because of the wording that goes along with it. 7 and 8, those two are really just the very end of the study. after you've gone through everything else here and you're looking at the results, just see if anything else seems a little bit off. Like there's something not quite right about how the data is being presented, or just something else that didn't quite fit the rest of these. A little final catch just to make sure everything seemed okay. Okay, so again, the first two problems are you get a statement, some sort of a claim is made, and then we got to decide whether or not we should doubt it. Number one, ice cream sales are always highest during the months of the highest crime rates. Okay, so therefore, ice cream causes crime. Well, obviously, ice cream does not cause crime. People eating ice cream doesn't cause them to go out and do crime. Yet the data shows that when ice cream sales are up, that crime is also up. Okay, so I mean, it's reasonable, I guess, to make the statement, except we know that it's just ridiculous at the same time. So should we doubt it? Yes, we should absolutely doubt it. So don't worry about A here. All right, reasons that we might doubt it. The variables are not clearly defined. Not so much. I mean, sales rates, crime rates, those are numbers, and that's how we're defining the variables. So there's not really an issue there. C, yes, there is a reason, and it's likely a confounding variable. That is going to be the answer. There's a confounding variable. So the confounding variable is that other source that we're not seeing in the study that's causing both of these things to go up, which in this case is going to be temperature. Okay, ice cream sales are going to go up when the temperature is higher, like summer months. Crime rates are also going to go up when the temperature is up. It's one of those weird things, but it's something about temperature. When it's hot outside, people are getting more agitated and they're more likely to do things that are irrational, like committing a crime. All right, so our confounding variable is going to be weather. Number two, local business. For the local chamber of commerce claims that the average number of employees among all businesses in town is 12.5. All right, that is just a statistic that is provided from the Chamber of Commerce. I don't think that there would be any reason to doubt that claim. Nothing seems far-fetched. They're not making a reason why that is the average number. They're just saying that it is. And the truth is that the Chamber of Commerce can go and ask every business that's in town, how many people do you have employed here? Then they can average them, they can provide the numbers. So there really isn't any reason to doubt that stuff. So it's going to be B or C. No, there's not a reason to doubt it. The number is believable for a town. That sounds like a pretty good answer. And I don't really have like a rebuttal to that one. I mean, if you start processing the numbers, you go, well, maybe it's a small town. You might have a lot of small businesses, and you can make a good argument for it. C, no, there's not a reason the Chamber of Commerce would not have a reason to distort the data. That is going to end up being the answer here. Like I said, they can just go out and they can get those numbers and they can average them. And I don't think that there's any benefit in that number being higher or lower. I don't think that tells any particular, it doesn't provide anything that's beneficial to them, right? So they don't have any reason to distort. So that's going to be the right answer, though B is not a bad answer. So if you happen to have chosen that one, not too bad. In fact, B and C I both feel are good answers and would be acceptable here. Number three, a newspaper reports that over 60% of adults avoid visits to the dentist because of fear. Okay, let's pause there for a second before I even go into the rest of the problem. Sometimes when you read the statements, they might sound crazy, right? Okay, like in my case, I go to the dentist twice a year. Used to it, right? And I have since I was a child, so I don't have any issues with fear of going to the dentist. And not even if I had to get some work done or whatever, I'm not afraid of the dentist. So I kind of feel that that's a crazy one, that over 60% are afraid. Okay, so then that gets my mind thinking why would they be afraid? Because if it's a cleaning, that's nothing, and they're just kind of picking at your teeth, and they're gonna floss them and make them shiny. That's all that is. There wouldn't be a reason. So then you start thinking, well, Okay, what would be the reasons that somebody would be afraid to go to the dentist? Okay, they might be afraid if they know something's wrong and they maybe haven't gone to the dentist before or something, but they're afraid of what stories they've heard, like drilling and all the different things that could be painful, or maybe they just don't want to hear bad news about it. So, but not a cleaning, right? Not a cleaning would be the reason, would not be a reason for somebody to be afraid. Not sure if that came out, but you should not be afraid to go to the dentist if it's only going to be for cleaning. All right, now what the question wants you to do is, let's see what it says. Which of the following is crucial information that you would want to know before acting on the study? So we got that information. Before we do anything with it, what questions might we want to ask about that statistic that they gave us? Okay, A. And you get to select all that apply. So there isn't just going to be one right answer here. A, the variable of interest. Not too sure on that one. I mean, I guess you would say that one because it doesn't really tell us what we're taking away. It's just a statement here. But the variable interest, is it about people being afraid of going to the dentist? Like, what is? I guess we need to define what it is there a little bit more. So that'd be all right to accept. B, how the respondents were chosen. Yeah, probably, because if you got such a high percent of people who are afraid to go to the dentist and avoid it, you might just be talking to people that know that they have problems with their teeth, and then they're afraid of maybe the cost. Maybe that's a fear, right? It could be the cost, but it might be the pain. C, the goal of the study. Yeah, you'd probably want to know that one. I think that one might be a little bit premature, so I'm not going to circle that one. D, the questions respondents were asked. Absolutely, yeah, because if they ask, are you afraid to just go for a regular checkup with the dentist, there might just be a few that say that they're afraid. But if you're asking about, are you afraid to go to the dentist to get any fillings done, then, oh yeah, you might have a high one there. So a lot of these, and what I sort of notice about that is, just given a short statement, yeah, there's probably a lot of questions you might have about it. The more that we know, the more that we can use to act on things. All right, what we're going to do next is talk about the two biases that you could have in a study. In my opinion, this is going to be the part of the activity that I feel is the most important for you to master here. The reason I would say that is, if you're keeping these things in mind as you're trying to choose your samples, which is what we did in 5A, then it's going to make that part go a little bit easier, okay? The answers here are still going to be in that gray area. You know, if you can justify things well enough, then that's fine. But anyway, here's what they are. Two different types of bias that you have. You have selection bias and you have participation bias. The selection bias, that is the researcher's fault if we have it. It's going to be the researcher's fault because that's the researchers picking people to be in the sample. Okay, and their job is always to make sure they have the most rounded sample that they can have. So if they know that there's going to be subgroups within their population, and those subgroups will almost automatically have like a favor in one direction or the other in a study, then they need to make sure that they don't choose everybody from like those little subgroups. You want to, or choose a little bit from each subgroups. Participation bias. That one so that one's on the participants. And long story short with that one is, people can decide to either be in the study or not. The end, right? All right, so the problem that we have is, because people can decide if they want to do the study or participate in it, we have to be aware that people will more likely decide to do a study, let's call it a survey, be more likely to do a survey if they've already got a strong opinion from the beginning. That's not the researcher's fault, but the participants might already have one. Like if you're asked to do a survey at the end of some phone call where you were working with a customer service representative, if you had a really good experience, you're going to do the survey. If you had a really bad experience, you're going to do the survey. If you had a neutral one, you're probably not going to do it. Okay? And the neutral ones, if they did do the survey, would probably click, yes, everything was good. They would probably do that. But because it was a neutral service and they're not passionate about giving that response, they're not going to worry about it. All right, so number 4. A district plans to hold a carnival on a particular day. They send a survey link to all the parents offering them to comment on whether the day is a good choice. Based on the results of the survey, the district decides to change to a different day. Okay, so we also have the results of the survey here, which is that they chose a different day here. Okay, selection bias, we don't have a problem here because they sent a link to all of the parents. They went to all the parents. And if you do that, then you're literally using your entire population, which means you have no sample, which means there can be no selection bias. It's as fair as possible. Now, participation bias, that one's there, okay? And it takes a little while to maybe figure out where the problem is with it. First off, when the link goes out, parents can either choose to do the survey or not. That itself is participation bias. But that might not be a reason to discount the results that we get from the survey. Okay, because that's going to happen in all studies, or almost all studies, it feels like. Any type of survey, people will choose to do it or not. But what we need to do is think about who are the people that decide that they want to do a survey. Do we really believe that all the parents did it? No, probably not. Okay, now the question asks to comment on whether the day is a good choice. Okay, the people who think that the day is a bad choice, they're going to do the survey for sure. Every single parent who feels that it's a bad choice is going to do the survey and ask for it to be moved to a different day. Then the other group, the group of people that really like the day, are passionate about having it on that day, they're going to do the survey as well. Okay? And then the neutral people don't really care too much about it. Which would be okay with the day, they'd say, yeah, that's fine, we can just do the day. They're probably not going to do the survey. So in our responses, we are probably going to have more people who want the day changed to be the ones who do the survey. The ones who want the day to be that day, they may do the survey. I know I said that they'll probably do it, but they may do it, but they also might not because it's already set for the day that they like. So they might not be worried about wanting to change it. And ultimately, we probably had participation bias on the part of the parents who want the day change, and then that's why the response turned out that the day had changed there. All right, number 5. Not going to read through everything here word for word because you should have already done the activity anyway, but what we have is on websites, a conservative website and also on a liberal website. At the very end of visiting that website, when you close the browser, a little pop-up comes up and it says for you to answer the question, what is your opinion on a new tax proposed by the House of Representatives? Okay. Now, conservatives and liberals will almost always see things from different perspectives. So it says here that the conservative website, 75% of the Americans support the new tax law proposed by the House of Representatives. That probably means that the House of Representatives is more of a conservative house at the time. So we see that the conservatives are in favor of it. The liberals, 75% of Americans do not support the tax law, and it's probably again because the House is conservative, so they're against it. All right, so the interesting thing here, at the beginning, if you look at the individual surveys, there is selection bias because it is clearly one side or the other. I mean, even the results tell you that with the 75% in the direction of, like, in opposite directions of each other. However, by doing both of the surveys, having both of those out there, then they are targeting the full audience, which makes the selection bias not really an issue. It should be fine. You definitely have participation bias because the survey is when they close the browser. And then when they close the browser, if they just got to go, they're not worried about it, then they'll just move on with it. Now, if it's just a short like quiz, kind of like survey, just yes or no, then it might not be an issue with it. Myself, I probably would not answer it because I'd be afraid that if I click on one thing to answer it, then I'll start getting more pop-ups of other stuff. So that'd be a reason why I might avoid on that one. Just kind of throw that out there at the end. If they put the survey at the beginning, they would probably have more participation. That was another thought that I had. All right, the last page that we have here, problem 6, 7, and 8. This is going to be about things we should think of when a survey is being done. Okay, we got a couple bullet points up here at the top. The first bullet point, does the setting guarantee confidentiality if the survey concerns sensitive subjects? We're going to get to a problem about that in a little bit, but yeah, it's true. When you're answering a survey, you might not want to have your name attached to it. If your name's not going to be attached, then you're more comfortable giving an honest answer and not the answer that you think people would want to hear from you. Second bullet point, is the wording likely to lead to accurate answers? The first bullet point, the order of the choices given is has an impact. People tend to choose the first option if they do not have a strong opinion. That is absolutely true from my experience. I'm a person who really just doesn't like to read long stuff. Okay, I get kind of bored with it and start daydreaming too quickly. So if I'm doing a survey that especially has like multiple questions on it and each one has longer like answer choices that go with them, I'll get burnt out after a few of the problems, and then I just start kind of randomly choosing things that are on there. I'll do a quick read to see if it's really, something that I'm passionate about. If I'm not, then I just start answering randomly with things, which gives you bad results, obviously. So for that reason, I always make sure that if I'm giving a survey to a class or something, that I do quick problems because I know that I do them. The other one that we got here, the wording can lead people to a particular answer. This is, I think it was mentioned at the very beginning of the activity, but you can use certain words that will influence how people respond to stuff. Okay, and again, we'll see some examples of these coming up. All right, number 6, Gallup poll asked the following 2 questions to the same sample of people. I found that interesting that they use the same sample to see how the answers will be different. First, they asked, do you favor a tax cut or increased spending for other government programs? Okay, so tax cut means that you'll get a little bit of money back, not a whole lot, but you get a little bit of money back. Or do you favor increased spending on other government programs? Me, I'd say, I think I'll go with the tax cut. Government programs, like what exactly does that mean? Where's my money going? Okay, well, 75% favored the tax cut. All right, next one. Do you favor a tax cut or spending to fund new retirement savings accounts as well as increased spending on education, defense, Medicare, and other programs? 60% favored the spending. Look at that, total flip-flop here. Majority wanted the tax cut here. Majority, not as much of a majority now, but majority is for the spending. Okay, why is that? So question A, why are the 2 questions producing seemingly contradictory results? Well, it's because the second bullet point actually gives you some details in there. If you're really vague with your answer, like the first bullet, just government spending, we don't know what that's for. Because we're talking about your money, right? You want to keep your money, but you'll be willing to give your money away if you know that it's going to maybe like a good cause, and all the things that are pretty much mentioned in the one spending on education, retirement, defense, Medicare. You can't have anything against all those things, right? They're all things that we like. So of course, more people are going to then go to that direction, but not everybody. Some people would still want the tax cut. B, how would the results be used how could the results be used selectively by various groups? Obviously, the answers give you totally different things because the majorities are flip-flop. It's not 75% versus 60%. Okay, in the first one, it's really like 25% support the spending, and then it goes to 60% support the spending there. So it's just whatever your needs are, like whoever the person is that's trying to convince this is what we should do, they're going to look at it from their own perspective. If they want the spending to occur, they're going to go with the second one. Okay, if they want the tax cut, they're going to go with the first one. Number 7, the government would like to determine the percent of people who cheat on their taxes. Discuss some things they can do to help ensure accurate results. Make it anonymous. I know that it says discuss some things. Discuss some things that they can do to here. Look, the bottom line is if you're cheating on your taxes, you're not going to tell the government that you're cheating on your taxes. But if there was a way to guarantee to people that their answers would be anonymous, then they will probably do that. Of course, as I'm answering that right now, man, I don't even know if, like, even if it was anonymous, if people would tell the government. Because if the government realizes that there's a lot of people cheating on their taxes, then they might, inspect it a little bit better, which totally ruins what's happening for that person who's cheating on their taxes. So I don't know if they'll get much out of it, but the main thing is anonymous. It's got to be anonymous. All right, last, number 8. A food company is interested in whether people prefer its cheesy cracker product to that of a competitor. All right, A, write an example of a survey question that would be biased towards people choosing the company's product over the competitor's product. Okay, so for that, all you really need, so this is a bad question, by the way. Ethically, it's a bad question. You should want to make sure that you're not leading somebody towards an answer here. But the way that you would make one bias is probably throw in some adjectives that make your product sound good and the other ones sound bad. So this is what I wrote. Do you like our delicious cheesy crackers more than the generic? Okay, I just told you ours are delicious. Why would you not choose ours? And I just told you the other ones are generic, which means that they're probably not as tasty. So there we are. B, write an example of a well-worded survey. A survey question that would be reasonably likely to get accurate results. Just make it neutral. Which cheesy crackers do you prefer? Don't tell them yours are delicious and theirs are bad. Just say which ones do you prefer, and then you take one. For that, so as I was doing the problem there, one of the things that I think I come back to is the very first guideline that we do have here, which is the big picture of the study. This should not be done as a survey. This should be done as an experiment, right? You should have 2 samples of the cheese crackers. Hopefully the shape doesn't give them away, but you get two cheese crackers, and you don't tell the person which brand is which, and you just let them taste them, and you get the results from there. Okay, so there's more than just the wording that goes into them, but you should definitely be checking the wording.